Well, we got some big stuff happening in the Middle East. It is taking a toll on the markets. Maybe not as big as you think it would. Mr. Breedwell is going to cut through the noise today, in addition to a lot of other data that's coming out. Stay tuned. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Money Moves. As always, your host, Matty A., my co-host, Mr. Ryan Breedwell. How we doing, brother?
What's up, y'all?
Well, this week feels like one of those moments where the headlines don't necessarily match what's going on in the markets.
It's a lot of up and down with the oil prices swinging pretty aggressively.
Yeah, we've got, so we're going to dive in. We've got some job losses in the U.S. economy, record unemployment among college graduates specifically. We'll break that down. Housing affordability is at historic extremes. At the same time, as you mentioned, markets are swinging pretty wildly up and down, still ending up. It sounds like, and we're going to talk about how close we are to these all-time highs in spite of all of the craziness that's going on with oil, the Middle East. Hundreds of billions added or erased in hours. The Fed we've seen rate cuts kind of fluctuate on the daily based on what's going on with the markets and the war in Iran. Layer on top of that, we've got sovereign investors that are potentially reconsidering investments in U.S. assets. We've got the acceleration shift rapidly towards crypto payments and digital financial rails. So we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff. We're going to zoom out. We're going to connect the dots. We got policy, markets, real estate, and technology to dive into today. Specifically, we'll talk about the Gulf nations and their investment in the U.S. and whether that really is going to move the needle forward or not in terms of scaring people, to pull capital out of the market. We've got some job losses that we'll talk about. Maybe there's a shift happening in the labor market. We've got some, and you tell me how, we'll get to it, but how bizarre $900 billion going out of the market at the open and then getting bought right back up and then some, and how that's impacting investor returns. Just some wild volatility there. We got some growing tension between banks and crypto companies over stablecoin regulation. The surprising stat showing Americans now hold more Bitcoin than gold, why half of Americans can't afford their housing payments despite prices skyrocketing, and the quiet shift happening in certain housing markets. So why don't we just talk about the big elephant in the room that pretty much is all over the mainstream news. What's going on between, us and Israel and Iran and really some of the Gulf states in the Middle East. I don't know if you saw the letter from one of the big oil company guys who basically was from the Middle East, was upset that, Trump just kind of went in there without congressional approval, said that, those actions are impacting them, their businesses, their countries, which led to some of them stating like, hey, if you're not going to respect our region, we're going to pull, I think it was close to 2 trillion. Let me make sure I got that correct. But while I'm pulling that stat, give us a take on this just crazy volatility and what we've been seeing in the markets, and yet we're still not that far off from the market making all-time highs.
Yeah, well, really last Friday we saw after market close and over the weekend that Israel struck a lot of oil infrastructure in Iran, and that caused oil prices to surge up to around $120, $130 a barrel, which is not good for the market. That's going to send the market into a dive because oil prices affect pretty much everything. But we quickly saw it retrace, and I mean, as of today, oil is down back another 8%. Somewhere around $83 to $85 a barrel. It's like looking what the spot pricing is. We had some information come through that the Strait of Hormuz was open and U.S. ships are traveling through it, but that ended up not being true. And so we saw kind of a further dip, and that dip kind of got bought back up. But it seems that oil is trending back down based on the fact that Trump said also on Sunday, hey, we're pretty much at the tail end of this excursion in Iran. We've reached most of our goals. Israel seems to have reached most of their goals. So we're going to kind of be winding down here soon.
Which was weird because the next day Hegseth said the biggest strikes are yet to come.
Yeah, we keep doubling down.
Yeah, and then internal, I think, intelligence from the Israeli side said them and the Pentagon agreed it's probably going to go into September. So there's a lot of like conflicting noise and reports coming out, which obviously makes, the markets don't like uncertainty, right? So I think that's where they've struggled to find like what's the truth and where does the market. So it's been like ping ponging up and down, right?
Yeah, so we saw a big kind of pop in the market, and then it pulled back a bit, then it went back up, and really it ended modestly down, but flat really for the day, but up since it bottomed out on the news of oil prices. Oil prices peaked when the market bottomed out here through this little cycle, and it's looking like we're probably again moving through this. And I think that the more rhetoric we get towards things calming down and something else that will distract investors, the market will continue to calm. We're less than 5% off all-time highs. So I mean, this is not really.
It really is wild how much the market absorbs war.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, you can definitely tell that's not what the market wants, but it's not gonna put us into a recession or anything like that. What people think. The economy, U.S. economy makes a lot of money in war times.
Yeah.
So oil was the risk. Once that was
it spiked up, north of 110, something like that,
almost
and then
to
now
130 a barrel. Now it's about at 85.
It's 85. Okay, yeah.
So, it was sub 80 for a bit today, and it went back up on the news.
Okay.
The Strait of Hormuz is not open per se, and there's potential Iranian mines there.
I was going to say this could change, by the time this podcast even gets launched, it'll probably change 3 or 4 times, right? I mean,
definitely.
It's so wild how fast this stuff is changing, and Trump is tweeting, 4, 5, 6 times a day. And then you hear, then he's on the news, a handful of times a day answering questions for reporters. And then you hear all of his kind of cabinet and other people, and then, Israeli comments and stuff coming out. So it's hard to like sort through.
There's a lot of information coming at us from all different angles.
It's wild. More so than I think ever before, right? Like it feels like the markets are struggling to like sort through what's going on and all the noise. And that's where I think when you zoom out and you just go, are we going to be higher in, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years with these quality companies or not? Like you don't want to get too wrapped up in that. But, to maybe zoom in a little bit, we did see that 3 of the 4 big Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, and Qatar, discussed publicly, and I think this is more of a little chess move on their part, trying to posture on Trump in the United States. They discussed withdrawing from the U.S. and other investments as the toll from the war with Iran is mounting on them. They included that budget strains are reportedly mounting due to reduced income from energy, shipping, and tourism. Countries could reassess their investment commitments to the U.S. based on those impacts. The move would be viewed as a precautionary measure, moves that obviously would potentially jeopardize U.S. investments and could put a little bit more pressure on Trump to think about how he's moving, and stepping in the Middle East. And obviously, $2 trillion in U.S. investments, that was a big, kind of Trump card that he was touting around of all the money that he was getting people to come invest in the United States, while the Middle East, and obviously their ties to oil and a lot of the capital that they have, they've got a pretty big stick that they can at least swing when it comes to, negotiating and maybe some of the geopolitical policy when it comes to the war that's happening in their region.
Agreed. And I think that, like I said, I think that there's going to be, there has been for 40, 50 years geopolitical risk over there, but it's always on the verge of being unstable. I just don't think it's that shocking. And I'd rather it get handled like this than how it's been handled in the past.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of people's opinion on it, and I know that there's collateral damage, but I mean, it's just if we keep doing the same thing over and over, it's just going to keep doing the same thing, same result over and over. I'm a fan of the kind of hard line. Let's just do a kind of a hard reset on some of these assets, and with that, and once we get more control over the situation, they're going to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. They're going to make assurances to people going through that area, and the oil market will stabilize, because that's really the only thing that's throwing the market off right now is just oil prices.
Yeah, I mean, I know and I want to talk in a second about, like, what do you think is going to happen once there is real clarity and guidance around, like, hey, this is done, we're moving forward, bluer skies ahead. Before we dive into that, because talking about some things that could impact the market, it seems like, I mean, last week we had a federal trade court judge ordered the Trump administration to start refunding the more than $130 billion it collected in the global tariffs, invalidated by the Supreme Court last month. It didn't really seem like that shook the market much.
Yeah, it's not enforced. It's not. They're appealing that, and that's, like I said, I thought that was a stupid ruling, because I don't really know how they're going to enforce.
It's just going to get I feel like it's going to get mothballed and teased out for a really long time.
He said it'll be 5+ years. We'll debate this in courts before it goes anywhere.
That's crazy.
So yeah,
so the market's not worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
Then we saw a weakening U.S. labor market with job losses and unemployment, specifically a big portion of that among younger generations, college age individuals. Employment obviously touches everybody. So I'm just curious on, any of that data at a level that's concerning to, the market, the stock market specifically, economy as a whole.
No, I mean, the current graduating classes out of high school, out of colleges, are not super impressive, and the stuff that they're studying is like liberal art, brain dead stuff. I mean, it's nothing that's going to move the needle forward.
I mean, not all of them, but...
Well, I mean, a lot more than when I was in college.
Oh, for sure. I mean, outside of the specialized degrees, I think now...
Specialized degrees are a waste of money, minus ones in medicine,
that's
ones in law.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right?
They're an absolute, just like, let me use word salad to call my obsession something other than an obsession. It's just stupid.
Yeah, so
anything like Native American multicultural studies or anything, it all sounds good, and I'm not hating on that, but like in reality, where is that applicable in the real world? Nobody gives a fuck. I mean, just being blunt. Nobody cares.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is, I think, been exposed, especially in four-year degrees. I mean, when you look at this statistic, unemployed Americans with four-year college degrees have hit a record high. And I think it was something like 30 or 40%. I need to find like the specific statistic. But that to me is wild, right? It just shows now that, back in the day, I was talking with my dad the other night when he came over for dinner, and we were actually talking about like why we think birth rates are going down and why less people are getting married and like things like that. And I'm like, well, one, affordability I think is a big issue. Like when I make a big decision in my life, if I'm in a solid financial position and footing, I'm going to lean in and take some risks. When I'm starting at the starting line, 150 or 200K in the hole, maybe I'm not going to have kids until I feel like I'm a little bit later down the road and a little bit more established and stable and I can take care of that kid. Maybe I'm not going to want to get married until I get my financial house in order. Maybe I'm not going to even decide to buy a house or take some risks, even if I could afford it, so when you think about how many people are getting those kind of degrees and they're starting 150, 200, 250K in the hole to make 50, 60 grand a year. And then we're seeing a lot of those jobs already get impacted by AI and hiring. And now you see unemployment at that level for people with four-year degrees. You're like, why the fuck am I going to go to a 4-year school now? Like,
Yeah,
and most of them are in just indoctrination camps of shit
Yeah.
that really is not empowering you with the skills to go be successful in life.
But that's half the problem is they're doing it to themselves because they want to just be clicked up in these weird social black holes of nothing. And again, I don't get it because that didn't exist when I was in college. And I wasn't in college like a long time ago. We're talking 12 years ago I was in college.
Yeah, I was going to say the last decade has been a very, post-COVID is just, I feel like pre-COVID, post-COVID, to me still, I'll say this out loud and I'll argue with anybody that wants to, I think they're two different worlds now. Like,
well, yeah.
Stuff has shifted so rapidly, mainly with human psychology and cultural and social norms.
Yeah, well, it's Gen Z. I mean, that's who it is.
A big portion of it.
They suck. I mean, they just suck. I don't care. Crucify me. They're the dumbest. I mean, we were stupid. Okay, we TP'd houses. We aimed people. We did normal stupid shit. These are fucking. I'll give you an example. All right. I went to I was driving around, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give myself a treat, which to me is like a Coke Zero. All right.
A little treat.
So I go get myself a Coke Zero at Jack.
What do you call them again?
Huh?
What do you call the Coke Zeros?
Fridge cigs. Give me a little fridge cigarette.
A fridge cigarette.
So I go and
laugh when you said that at the cabin.
I go and hit my fridge cig up, and I'm like, I go to Jack in the Box, and I'm like, all right, I got a few minutes. Let's go inside and order. This fucking guy is standing at the counter. I guess the girl working there is his girlfriend. They're like in their early 20s. He is leaning over the counter and he's like meowing and they're making like noises at each other. And she's like, wow, and I'm like, I'm standing there like, what the fuck am I watching? And then she goes, oh, hold on. Hi, how can I help you? And I'm like, I just need a drink. And I ordered a small and she gave me a medium that was nice. I said, thank you, have a nice day. No problem. I go and sit down and I'm just observing as they start doing that. They start saying made up words and they're doing this in a public space, like where people can see them.
Yeah,
and like, that's why that generation is cooked.
It's the social media generation.
They're so cooked.
The shit that people...
They're absolutely the biggest weirdos I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, that's the reason that birth rates are going down. Ain't nobody fucking that. And there's absolutely nobody that has they're like in a realm of non-common sense. I have to take that part out. But I'm just saying they're the weirdest.
Yeah.
Weirdest. Like to a level of weird. I don't want them near my family, my kids.
Yeah, and others. I mean, and I'll say I think every generation has weird people.
We had weird people.
I'm not painting.
I played World of Warcraft.
Or that.
I was a nerd.
There's an overwhelming amount of them.
They're like
yeah, it's
terribly weird. And look at the stuff that happened nowadays. We have a crazy rise in school incidents, huge rise in the fact that people can't even have conversations without it turning into a physical argument. You got these people running around in baseball gear, black baseball gear, acting like they're part of some group they have no idea about. Literally, it's the worst. I hate them. I just plain and simple, I hate those people. If you're one of those people, you should stay away from me. My wife hates when I run into them in public. I absolutely roast them. It's just
poor Alex.
I know. She's like, leave me alone. I'm like, I gotta do it for the boys.
For the boys. So, I mean, when we see stuff like that, right? Obviously, the market seems to be shrugging stuff off like that. That was a fun little digression, by the way. And not everybody, like I meet everybody where they're at, but I would just say overwhelmingly, like there is a lot of weird stuff going on with the younger generations right now.
Yeah,
but that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother topic.
Like y'all are weird, dude. The US like so weird.
U.S. economy unexpectedly lost those 92,000 jobs in February, which was below the expectations of
And where did the majority of them come from?
58,000.
Fucking weirdos. Yeah, the Gen Z. That's where the majority of the job losses came from.
Was that really? Where was it?
Seasonal job losses for people 25 and under. I'm telling you, they're a drag on the economy. They're a drag on society. They don't do anything to stimulate the economy. The job creation that they'll provide is next to nothing. It's a problem. It's like a problem like Japan is having with their birth rates as far as like younger generations to mid-age generations not being that same thing on a hyperbolic 10x at worst level is happening, but it's happening to that generation. Where are our leaders? We are going to have this huge gap full of absolute doorstop idiots that have no idea how to have a conversation. They can't have any sort of they can't.
What is that a function of? Is that part of me, it's like
IQ
by design with a lot of the stuff that, has been pumped into culture and education, a lot of the variables that we just see in our world now, like that's just a function and a result of it. These are the inputs that you put into it, and that's what gets spit out versus previous generations, different inputs in, different, surroundings, environments, opportunities, challenges, and they spit out that. Gen X, they spit out that. Millennials, right? I think it's a function of there being, but like, is this going to be something that eventually leads to some kind of existential crisis where as baby boomers die off, who inherits their wealth, it's going to be the millennials, right? Or Gen X millennials. And then eventually you've got a big subset of our population and consumer drivers are those individuals who obviously are not earning. They are not, to your point, contributing at the level of society. AI is coming into play. Like, is that, and this is obviously down the road, right? Like, this is just us teasing this idea out. But to your point of like, if they're that big, if there's a doorstop.
Just imagine in your head somebody who's lived with their mom their whole life, taking care of them, loser that lives at home, but knows that when mom dies, they get the house. That's what's going to happen. And whatever that person would do with the money is what will happen. Typically, they just blow it.
Yeah.
Typically, it's just blown and it's gone through pretty quickly. And again, nothing to show for it. Doesn't provide any. It throws off the wealth wheel right when it starts. So that the only saving grace is the kids that millennials will have. At least there's so many, whatever they are, transgender, gay, they, whatever, but they're not procreating. So this is the only positive. They're so bad at life, they don't even continue it. Not like they die. They just don't procreate. They don't have kids. I'm telling you right now, one of the people that used to work for my dad, quite literally, his wife was like, hey, I don't want kids. I just want dogs.
There's a lot of people I know that
I just want to have dogs, and then and I want you to get a snip snip. No problem. Like zero. Like, well, you're not a man.
Yeah, that's some beta.
You're like not a man. If that's your response,
it is more prevalent.
Just that, and
I'm not saying everybody's that, but it is more prevalent.
I'm not either, but I'm saying the majority of the guys in that generation are soft.
Yeah.
Like I literally have a conversation like, the video game that I wish would have existed was I wish this shit was going on when I was in college. Me and my fraternity would have had a heyday. We were throwing Molotov cocktails at other people's houses back then that we just didn't, and I wasn't, obviously. But people were throwing lit at other fraternities that we just didn't like. And they were throwing it back at us and lighting cars on fire. It was a different time. This would have never ever happened when I was going to school. And somehow it's been allowed to happen. Who is allowing it to happen? Gen Z. They're the big problem. They're a huge problem in America. And if you're a Gen Z and you're listening to this and you don't like it, you are probably part of the problem
Mm.
because you probably aren't doing. How much of investments do you have? What are you doing for a job? Are you like an OnlyFans pimp? I mean, like literally the most successful people in that generation are dudes most of the time exploiting other younger women, typically on OnlyFans. I mean, I wish I was making it up.
Man, there was a crazy statistic I saw the other day that it was like some Gen Z women, something like 28 or 29% of Gen Z women are on OnlyFans.
Yeah, it
Like that's insane to me.
I'm not saying that there's, there's been porn stars and all sorts of, for years, and the older than us in our generation and younger it'll continue. And
Sure.
But I'm not kidding you. That is like, that's 1 out of every 4 women essentially have no skill. So they have to sell their body.
And then there's
there's a ton of
ton of dudes that are voyeuristic,
I mean,
weirdos that are paying subscriptions.
Like, we would make fun of people that did that.
That's insane, dude. Yeah,
it is wild.
That's
not like cool. Again, I have OnlyFans clients. I respect your money, then it's green. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's not for me. And again, that's like that generation in a nutshell. They're the worst. That's everything that would like be reprehensible, that you would not want to be represented by a generation, is represented by that generation. The only saving
We're gonna have some hot sound bites this week, Tony.
Yeah, the only saving grace is they're not having kids.
Yeah.
And and a lot of them don't plan to have kids. And they don't really like, I was on OnlyFans for like 10 years and I saw, who wants to have kids with that person? You're a straight hoe.
Mm.
So they just don't think, man.
Yeah.
And again, I know I've gone off on it. I hate that.
It's
so annoying.
It's a stain on society, in my opinion.
It's terrible.
Hey, there's all kinds of stains on society I don't participate in.
It's the closest to Andrew Tate I've ever felt right there.
Woo, that was good. All right. Well, markets now see nearly no chance of a Fed cut in
And
March,
that's also dumb.
which we knew that wasn't gonna happen,
Yeah.
right?
July's
still the month.
Yeah,
you're saying.
futures have been moving, but it's never moved off July. July has stayed solid. There's never been a real possibility of a rate cut chance before then. There's no way. There's just no reason for it. The only way would have been a recession. The only way we're getting a rate cut faster than that is a recession, and there's absolutely no chance of a recession right now. Like, we're going to get good CPI numbers is my assumption this week. That's going to ease tension. That's going to ease tensions on just focusing on Iran being the catalyst. And I think when people see oil prices moderating, they'll start biting on something else. People need news faster.
Yeah.
I already care less about what's going on in Iran right now.
Well, what about the private credit markets? We've been seeing some issues with the private credit markets. I think it was like BlackRock this week had all-time redemptions, and they actually capped redemptions. They wouldn't let their investors pull money out up to a certain percentage. Is there anything that you guys are seeing or paying attention to in private credit markets? And is that a big enough domino, should it fall or become an issue, that could lead to further impact in the stock market?
I'm not seeing or hearing anything from that area that is more concerning than something in the short term.
Okay.
My opinion would be that as long as rates continue to trend down and we can continue to buy back debt like we did today and refinance it, we bought back another $15 billion.
Yeah, wasn't that the largest in U.S. history?
Mm-hmm. And then we'll refinance that down. As long as we can continue to do that, everything's moving in the right direction. It may seem like it's not, but if we're a capitalistic society, we will continue to build debt on top of our debt, service it, and rinse and repeat forward.
I saw something very interesting. I mean, these banks know what they're doing. They're not dumb. Obviously the Fed is not dumb. They're all somewhat in cahoots together, right? And I just think this is a big part of why we've seen, I think Trump did a recent tweet about the banks are blocking the passage of stable coins and people earning more in stable coins and having more autonomy over their money than they're getting in banks and treasuries.
Like California.
Yeah.
California doesn't allow staking.
Yep. So are we going to see some shift with that in the Clarity Act? And
We should.
what impact could that have on banks if people are going, if I can move into a stable coin, that's the equivalent of the US dollar, and I could earn way more than I'd get in a bank account, and I can move that money without having to pay, anywhere close to the amount of wire fees or, the normal fees that you have at banks. If people pull their money out of banks, what could that potentially lead to?
I mean, it would affect that bank, but the money doesn't disappear.
Yeah.
So really, it'd be bad for those banking institutions, and they would be not smart. But they'll adapt. They'll figure it out. You still have to have a bank. You still need a capital originator, and banks are the only place that can originate in the volume that we need it to from the Fed. But we saw a similar issue in money market accounts. So people would just they'll follow the yield.
Yeah.
It just has to be allowed. And right now it's not really allowed. That I don't think is right. I think that California not allowing staking because they're saying they're protecting their consumers is a load of bullshit.
Yeah, for sure.
They should allow me to choose what I want to do with my money. And if I don't want to do it within what they want to do, well, then you need to catch up or get lost. And I think what was happening is California was not getting a piece of the pie, and then so they put the kibosh on it. But banks will catch up. They will.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way I could see them not.
No, especially like a JP Morgan Chase, or they're going to be more in the forefront because they're a wealth management versus a deposit or a lending bank like Bank of America or Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
But they'll adapt and they'll figure out something, and they'll have their version of us. Okay, well, we pay yield only on our stable coin, and so come and do this. And oh yeah, by the way, make a ton of money when you hold your assets there, and we still won't pay you on this side, but they'll just offer it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we saw this week, obviously pursuing regulation, the Clarity Act, banks rejected White House stablecoin rewards deal, and they stalled the Clarity Act further. Banks have rejected a compromise proposed by the White House on a major U.S. crypto market bill. Officials attempted to broker a middle ground between banks and crypto companies. The proposal allowed stablecoin rewards in limited cases, such as peer-to-peer transfers between users. However, the plan prohibited incentives on idle stablecoin balances. Crypto companies accepted the plan. Banks have rejected it, fearing large outflows into crypto companies from the banks.
That's the thing. It's like you can't bring up a competitive tool to the competitor and say, hey, by the way, we're going to do something that's not great for your bottom line because you refused to do something different. We need you to approve it. No, nobody is going to fucking do that.
Yeah. So what is the solution there?
You have to cut the bank.
You got to cut them in on it, right? Like
you got to cut them out of the decision-making process. It's not, it sounds democratic, but it's not. You're allowing somebody to say no because the innovation will hurt us. Well, then innovate.
Mm-hmm.
That's the equivalent of, again, we bring up this argument. That's the combustion engine going to the horse and the buggy and saying, hey, by the way, you're going to the wayside. And them saying, no. That'll put us out of business. You can't do anything that would move the ball forward. That'll take profit away from us. It's the same thing with everything. A lot of the stuff we have. That's why lobbying is bad and cronyism is bad, and we should have that more limited. And that's a conversation for another day. But the bank shouldn't be involved in that.
Yeah.
So if you're losing, if the consumer is telling you your product is shit, so they're taking their money out of it, then stop trying to sell them that product.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
There was something like $600 billion in overdrawn balance fees last year. When you think about that, the amount of money the banks made off of people who are already fucking broke and struggling. Like that's just one example of many, I think, that we could say is a completely broken process.
It's just so long in the tooth.
Yeah.
Until we get...
People are waking up to it, and that's where crypto is starting to get more looks, right? People are going, this makes a lot more sense to me. I mean, I've got more money sitting in stable coins right now than I've got in banks. Truly.
Yeah, the thing that this is what gets...
Got to have, but if you're playing in the fiat world still, and you need to have a balance sheet in the fiat world, and the crypto world is not figured out yet.
They have no insurance in the fiat world.
And
there's no SIPC, and there's no... So if Tether or USDC or whatever goes down, they are not FDIC.
Yeah, you're screwed.
There's nobody's SIPC back. So you're just... Your money's gone. And so that's where it gets Wild Westy. Now, with that being said, insurance amounts are pretty paltry for today's values. $500,000 on SIPC and $250 on FDIC is pretty low. So that also needs to be touched.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess pick your poison, right?
Yep.
At least from a risk profile perspective. CNBC reports Walmart will now accept Bitcoin and crypto payments in store for its 1 billion monthly users. We also saw that Americans now own more Bitcoin than gold. 50 million Americans own Bitcoin, 37 million Americans own gold.
I was going to say maybe quantity of individual, but not quantity of asset.
Yeah.
There's substantial amount of value of gold owned by those 30 million.
that stat was put out there by
that's a
Bitcoin bull.
It's like saying,
but 50
it is million people have $1 and
Just
37 million people have $50.
Well, I think it's the ease. I had a really smart guy, Dana Samuelson, who owns American Gold Exchange, come on the podcast this last week, and just going through the industry, the history of it, how you get access to it, the scams that are out there, the storage of it. Like, and you've talked about this many times, like that process to me seems way more cumbersome than me just clicking a button on my phone and
gold on a little paper is better. Because you pay a very small fee for a professional who all they do is gold and do gold for you. Because precious metals have to be done properly in there. It's just different. So we only buy gold on paper.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, you own gold, but you don't really want to physically own the gold.
Yeah.
And you just want the price movement of the physical gold anyway. So we're going to get spot access to it and let somebody else hold the gold for us.
This was a really interesting thought around just, does it feel like there's any kind of challenge to the financial system, the central banking system, the way it's been set up for so long? Obviously, crypto is a threat to it, right? And
they fucked up by not updating it.
And it to me, it feels like this push towards updating it with new financial rails.
They should have done it in little pieces forever. They designed it to be perfectly imperfect, so that they being the Fed, can kind of really control monetary policy.
Yep.
But they never updated it.
Yeah.
And then we ran on this really old financial system that worked great through about the early 2000s. Sorry,
I saw that little.
And now, because we've had so much forced innovation, especially since COVID, so fast, it's flipping itself on its head, and now it's like, okay, this definitely needs to be updated.
Yeah.
But it's going to take forever now because we haven't updated it ever. And so you have so many people used to doing it one way. Well, we have a digital dollar technically right now, but do we? We still print physical money. Is physical money a good idea to have? So you got all this stuff that's just a problem, and it would have been fine if we did like what most countries do and just slowly but surely update our monetary system. We just never did. So we have this really old way of doing financial business in a really young country with the most technology. The most ease of access to the most technology, meaning we may not be the most technologically advanced, but the majority of people use the most advanced technology in our country. And we can't take advantage of it because of where we are.
Yeah.
So the obvious step is to make changes like we have proposed, But the people that are in charge, like Senator, is it Thune or whatever the hell is the name? You just got old people trying to make new decisions, and they're funded by the exact same thing that is holding us back. And so that's going to be a big problem for a long time, is we have to cycle through a lot of the old leadership and get new leadership in that understands the value of the crypto space and what it can do for us from a technological standpoint, how it can advance our current financial system, and what it does to also make us safer. Because if we're not number one in it, somebody else will be.
Oh, for sure.
And so we need to hold that position.
We need to keep the financial supremacy that we do have, right?
Correct. For the better of everybody. We are not perfect, but we're substantially better than what everybody else would be. People just forget that. They think that because we don't perform at perfection, magically somebody else could. And I would ask, who? China? No. Russia? No. France isn't big enough. The EU isn't unified enough. So we're the best option. We're the most fair option for everybody to have a chance. We're still not going to do it perfect, but we are the best option out there. So if we don't take a hold of it, you're going to see somebody that's not a great actor get a hold of it, and they're going to naturally adopt people to follow them.
So to put a bow on this topic of kind of financial supremacy, I saw this post the other day, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. What if, and it basically said, what if Trump is bombing the Middle East to build American financial supremacy 2.0 with crypto? Think about it this way. Venezuela was a resource seizure. North American, which leads to North American strategic consolidation. China does an energy pivot over to Iran because they were getting a lot of their energy from Venezuela. Iran now has a major energy disruption because of what Trump is doing and bombing a lot of the oil and, their infrastructure. Russia realigns with us in that capacity. China now finds themselves isolated. BRICS weakens. The dollar has some strategic reset with crypto, Bitcoin, whatever you name it, and the new infrastructure and stablecoin rails. And we're at the nucleus of it all, controlling it all. It's out there.
It's a lot of moving parts.
That's like
I don't know how
the Trump 18D chess, or you see all these people. Oh, he's playing.
I don't
fucking
think, I
18D chess.
I think that a lot of crazy things are happening, but I think that would be the craziest thing to happen.
That one's out there,
I think that's a little bit.
I just felt like it'd be fun to bring it up, but I mean, theoretically, it could make some sense, right? I'm sure maybe some of that is some geopolitical, strategy and some of the stuff that's going on.
Sure.
I don't think that us going into Iran is 100% all based on they have nuclear weapons and they're going to kill the world. Like, I think that narrative has sounded good for a long time, and I think it does make a lot of sense based on the history of how they operate.
Saying it. I mean, they definitely were saying it publicly, so it's not like that's something that's
saying it forever.
Yeah, just the problem is nobody would do anything about it. So now finally somebody did something about it.
Yeah.
I don't have any, I got no problem with what's been going on. I don't think Israel is some state that has no issues with it, and I don't think that they're, to put themselves on a pedestal that they're some great non-wrongdoing nation, just like we shouldn't either. But I am only worried about the innocent lives lost in Iran. I'm very happy to see the people that are being killed, that need to be killed. It's sad to say that that's what it has to come to, but I mean, I feel better with those people gone.
Yeah.
I feel better with their Navy gone. I feel better with all their missile systems gone. They shouldn't, an out-of-control child should not have those types of things when they can't control their temper.
Well, it is hard to argue that point, and I don't disagree on, no matter what country you're under, the most evil people on planet Earth need to be held accountable. And
yes,
I think we have some issues on our home turf as well. There's a lot of distractions outside of the Epstein files that people still want some accountability on that stuff. So Let's shift over to real estate and wrap up. Average home prices are up 737% since 1980. I thought you would like this stat. The S&P 500 in that same period.
Say one more time.
Average home prices are up 737% since 1980. The S&P 500 is up 18,894% over that same period. So I know you and I always talk about, we love our fun debate
Appreciation of assets.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the S&P, stocks have always outperformed from a long-term standpoint, from an annualized growth perspective, real estate. But real estate does stuff different than stocks. You got paid a lot from your real estate versus your assets just appreciate over that period of time. So they're different. Matt knows when I say that stocks will he's not going to disagree with that. And he knows that I know in the back of my mind that real estate does a lot of stuff that stocks don't do. They're really good together. Stocks, bonds, and real estate are a very good trio of assets that work well together. You can certainly be successful with just one. Why not have all of them is what we say, because they all work really well and in tandem together. They're typically a bull market in one or two areas when there's not in the other, and they're complementary. So they're a great wealth building tool, and everybody should have access to them at some level.
Look at you giving some real estate love. Well, speaking of real estate love, people are maybe not as in love with their real estate. 49% of the U.S. cannot afford their rent or mortgage per Redfin's new survey. Obviously, I think we've been talking about this for some time, with the affordability issues, with wage growth not keeping up with, the inflation of home values. Obviously, interest rates tie into this being a very big kind of concoction of challenging dynamics that make, what we're seeing and experiencing right now. We did get a positive print today on, was it housing starts?
New home sales.
New home sales.
Yep. Pending new home sales were much higher than expected, which is good. That means that houses are moving on the market, not just sitting. DOM is not getting too aggressively hit, days on market. And it was a beat by a couple 100,000, about 200,000 more transactions than we're anticipating. That would be substantial. So that's good news. Seasonally, that would align with how weather is looking and where interest rates are trending towards. So it's a positive for the overall housing market. And single family, I still think we have a ways to go on the commercial side.
Yeah, agreed there. And to support that, mortgage applications jumped 11% last week as interest rates fell to 5.98%, which was the lowest since September of 2022. Refinancing led the surge, with refinance applications at their strongest pace since 2022, and conventional refinance is up 20%. Home purchase applications also increased. The lowest rates are drawing both home buyers and those looking to refinance their existing mortgages. So some positive activity if you're in the industry. I do think we are living through one of the largest artificially inflated real estate bubbles in history. I mean, we had practically 0% interest rates. There was massive stimulus injected into the economy, post 2020. We had record speculation that these things were just going to keep running and going up forever. I do think we are going to see some type of an unwind here over the next few years. Right now, Florida is leading that unwind, at least in terms of showing price declines at the moment. Miami, the least of those big cities within Florida, 2.5% pullback in pricing. Tampa, right in the middle at 4.2% pullback in pricing. Fort Lauderdale, 5.4%. Naples is almost 7%. Sarasota, St. Petersburg, 8%. Cape Coral at 10%, and Fort Myers, an 11% pullback. I think we'll see, states that saw a lot of in-migration, like the Floridas, like the Texases, like the Arizonas. They're going to experience probably the heaviest pullbacks. And depending on where housing supply and then obviously, where rates end up and how that drives demand or not, will kind of determine how aggressive we see some of these housing pullback pricing. I think, let's see, let me just make sure. Nothing new here. Housing affordability at record lows. At a record low as home prices surged 270% since 2000. So yeah, all normal stuff there. As always, we should appreciate you guys tuning in. The main narrative and topic here is obviously how the war is impacting oil and how the oil impact is impacting, the stock market and really just the overall consumer confidence and sentiment that ripple effect has in the rest of the markets.
Yep.
I do think, to your point, and we were talking about this, I don't know if we were talking about this before the show or after, but you think Trump is going to get this thing wrapped up sooner rather than later. And what do you think is going to happen to the markets when that clarity is felt and understood by the masses?
It's going to go up pretty quickly. We saw a little taste of it today, so it'll go up pretty fast.
Any pullbacks in the short term?
Potentially, but
nothing
that we're trying to buy all the dips and pullbacks we can.
Okay. Well, you guys heard it here first. Don't forget to shoot us a text, 844-447-1555. If you want to connect with Ryan and his amazing team, you can text the word X-ray to that same phone number. If you want to get on my passive income deals list, you can text the word deals, 844-447-1555. As always, we appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week. Until next week, keep investing in yourself and your wealth and your march to $1 million and beyond. Cheers.
Cheers, y'all.